So welcome to Industry Insights. My name's Allie Irk. I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Student Career Development. I'm joined by my colleague.
Hi, I'm Andrea Rigger, and I'm one of the career coaches at Lehigh as well, serving the arts and science students.
And we have a very special guest today joining us, Amy Steigerwalt from OraSure Technologies. We're very glad that you could take time to be with us today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. This is exciting to join your university for a couple minutes.
So wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I know you're going to share some tips about the job search for students.
Sure, absolutely. So my name's Amy Steigerwalt. I am from Pennsylvania. I've been with OraSure Technologies for the past 3 years. I am a graduate of University of Pittsburgh. So I was in University of Pittsburgh. I moved directly to New York City, spent many years in the fashion industry in various HR roles. And then I moved back to Pennsylvania and I worked at Knoll manufacturer it's a furniture manufacturer based in East Greenville. Moved to Air Products and now I'm with OraSure Technologies. So happy to be here.
Well, we're really glad to have you. Wondering if you want to share some of the tips for students. I know that you're going to walk through some of the critical components of things that students should keep in mind when they're thinking about the job search.
Sure, absolutely. So would you want me to share my screen now and kind of go through some things and talk about things for job search? So give me a second. I'll share my PowerPoint presentation that I have here. It's funny, I have two, so I'm hoping I'm sharing the right one. So going back to who I am, so I graduated from University of Pittsburgh. I moved directly to New York after my graduation date. And fortunately for me, the job market was fantastic at the time. And I had a job as an HR assistant at MAC Cosmetics. At 25, I moved to Polo, Ralph Lauren, and I was an HR manager for their denim division. After that, I wanted to expand my career from a recruitment perspective, so I took a director of recruitment job at Tommy Hilfiger. I then spent time there, moved on to Knoll, as I wanted to move back to Pennsylvania, back to my roots. Spent 10 years at Knoll. Most recently, I was at Air Products for a little over 3 years. And then I got a fantastic opportunity at OraSure that I couldn't turn down. So now I've been at OraSure for 3 years as well. So it's a little bit about who I am. It's interesting. So one of the things I tell people all the time is that I talk to my girlfriends and I talk to other colleagues and, after a long weekend, they're like, oh, I don't want to go back to work. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you know what? I never feel that way because I love my job. And one of the things, the recurring themes, and I'll tell you about my downfalls, the good things and the bad things that I've done because I haven't always loved my job. But you have to choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. And it's so important. And I hope to share some insights with you on things to think about and look for as you're going through your job search. So a quick thing about OraSure. So OraSure is literally in your backyard from a Lehigh University perspective. We were founded in 2000, obviously headquartered in Southside Bethlehem. We have over 400 employees in our workforce. We're publicly traded on the NASDAQ. We have a worldwide presence. So we are in not only the US, we're in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We are in Minnesota, we're in Houston. We have sales reps all over the United States, all over the country. We have a large office in Ottawa as well as Belgium. So our roots, we actually started at Lehigh University. There's 3 Lehigh University grads, so Mike Gosling, Sam Needbulla, and Bill Henchy. All 3 of them graduated from Lehigh University and they got together. One had a marketing background, one had a finance background, and one had a science background. And they had an idea for a business and they were selling disposable sunscreen wipes. So they created this business literally on Lehigh University. And they then created these wipes and they were successful wipes. They actually sold them to Coppertone and then started a new business. So they started a fluid collection business in 2000. So they merged with a company called Epitope and they created OraSure. And so a couple things that have happened since then. OraSure went public in 2000. DNA Genotech was acquired, and I'll talk a little bit about who they are, CoreBiome, Novosanis, and then most recently, we acquired Diversigen. So tell you how they all fit into our little mold here. So OraSure is a company, we really have three areas of our business. So we have sampling, so this is sample collections and stabilization, and that's our two companies, DNA Genotech and Novosanis. So if you think of oral fluid stabilization, you think of things that you can spit into or you swab your mouth with. Probably one of our biggest customers that you've seen in the news is 23andMe. So we create the stabilization that goes into the fluid tube where you spit into to send your fluid samples into. We have a services area as well. So this is CoreBiome and Diversigen. So this is where all of the fluid samples will go into for data analytics. We have a wet lab, we have a full analysis there, and we have consultation services as well. Those are the most two recent companies into our family. And then finally, we have a diagnostic section, and that is the part that is directly here in Bethlehem. So this primarily focuses on infectious disease, substance abuse testing. And this is, again, all oral fluid coming out of Bethlehem. So believe it or not, one of the most exciting things, and you've probably seen in the paper right now, is that we will have the first oral fluid collection test for COVID. So that will be launched hopefully in the fall, where we've been going through all of the samples, working with the CDC and WHO. So you'll see more of that coming from us. But again, it's a quick test. It's a swab of your mouth. There's also a nasal cavity swab to get immediate results. So very exciting things happening at OraSure. A lot of people say to me, they're like, recent grads, and a lot of parents will say to me, hey, I had a kid, they just graduated from college, can you help them? So I talk a lot about, what does your job search look like? What should you do from a company perspective? What should you be thinking about? So one of the biggest things, and one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my career, to be quite honest, is looking for companies you connect with. And it's so important because it's where you go every day. So it's not only about what you do, it's about what the company does as a total. So are there products you connect it with? Do you connect with the values of the organization? Do you connect with the services of the organization? Is there a connection point for you to go in every day and make you feel like you're adding value to something in the world? What companies are thriving? So are there companies in your local community that are really thriving and are able to have a lot of jobs, a lot of hiring, a lot of exciting things going on? Network. So who do you know that can connect you to the right person? Don't be shy. There's always somebody out there. Employers want good people. And so the more that you can connect, whether it's with a friend, it's with a parent, it's with a colleague, connect with the right people, get yourself out there. LinkedIn, I will tell you, 99% of companies use LinkedIn to recruit. So look at your profile, make sure your profile is up to date, make sure it looks great. It highlights your experience, highlights who you are as a person, highlights the things that you've accomplished, because it's what we look at from a recruitment perspective. So believe it or not, social media presence, and this is kind of the old, make sure you know what's out there about you, make yourself private. What is out there about you is really important. And it doesn't mean you have to make it private. It means that you have to know what content is out there about you. So for example, on my Facebook page, it is private, but I'm sure lots of people can see because you're connected with a lot of people. But it's more about like my family presence and what's happening in my personal life. And I make sure that the things that are out there are appropriate. I am very cautious, and I can tell a quick story. We had somebody who we were recently interviewing. I was able to look at her Facebook page, and there was a lot of negativity on there. Like, oh, I don't want to get up this morning. Oh, why does everybody hate me? Oh, I really hate this restaurant. And there was a lot of negativity on the page. We actually chose, after we met with her, and she was probably equal level candidate to another candidate, not to move forward because the negativity really showed on her Facebook page. So just be careful about what's out there for you. And then most importantly, job boards. I mean, job boards are the key to looking at what's available in your area and can give you a lot of pop-ups. So right now, every company posts jobs out on the networks that they have, which automatically feed all the job boards. Everything is really smooth now from a technology perspective that as soon as you post it out there, it feeds everywhere. So check it all out. It's resources at your fingertips. Things that employers look for, people that are flexible, good communicators, out-of-the-box thinkers, motivated, self-starters, reliable, a good team player, positive attitude, strong work ethic, smart. When all of this sounds really basic, I got to tell you, it's really hard to find. So show these aspects of yourself and show that you can be so many of these things on your interview process and in your employment journey. So a lot of people say, I have an interview. What do I do? Can I talk to you about this interview? So I always tell everybody, there's a couple of key things you have to think about when you're interviewing. Number one is you're interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. So remember that. You want to make sure that this is the right fit for you from a culture perspective, from a job perspective, from a hiring manager perspective. All of this will make you what loves your job. So conduct your research on the employer. See what things people are saying about them. Look on Glassdoor. See what employers and employees are saying about the company. Ask around. When you're interviewing with the hiring manager, ask some personal questions. What do they like to do on their time off? How do they treat their employees? What do they look for in somebody? And then know about the opportunity. So know about, what does the day-to-day look like? Who will I be working with? What departments do I work with on a consistent basis? What does my team look like? Do they all get along? And then finally, I think one of the most important things is the culture of the company. So is it more of a familial culture that everybody wants to help each other and get to know each other and everybody works well together? Or departments work more in silos? Really important to know that and know what you like out of those type of jobs. I always tell people, so it seems like going into interviews, think about the common interview questions that people are going to ask you and prepare your responses. So simple things like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are things you need to work on? If I asked a previous boss to describe you, how would they describe you? So think about what are those questions that your interviewers are going to ask and be prepared to answer them. Dress for success. It's always good to have somebody who comes in and is put together and ready to talk about things, and it shows, kind of gives you that first really good impression. Arrive on time. Nobody ever likes a late interview, so make sure you're there, you're prepared. I always tell everybody, be authentic. So when you're going into an interview, make sure you are who you are. Make sure you're answering questions how you would answer them, not how you would want them, you think that they want to hear. Be focused. So I know a lot of times when I'm on interviews and I have a window in my office and there's a lot of traffic that goes by, it's always good not to look at the traffic and look at everything that's happening outside the window. Focus on the interview. Be present. Be confident. So be confident in your answers. Be candid and honest. Like I said, be very concise. Nobody wants a long-winded interview answer. Remember the importance of body language. I always tell everybody, sit up straight, make eye contact, make sure that you're focused on the conversation, ask insightful questions, be prepared with questions to ask for your interview panel. And then finally, again, sell yourself. I mean, it's important. Only you are going to be able to show how important and what you're going to make for this company. So, but again, after all of that, you are the person who's going to be making the decision again on, is this the right company for me? So always think about, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Post-interview things to know. Okay, writing emails to the interview panel to thank them for their time. Many hiring managers, I would say 99% of my hiring managers always say, that was a really great follow-up. I really appreciated that. But be specific about what you learned, reiterate your interest in the company. Recruitment takes time, so don't get discouraged. Think about, if you're on the first end of the interview panel, it's probably going to take a good 3 to 4 weeks to get through all of those candidates, possibly come back in for the second interview round. So it's going to take a decent amount of time to get through all those candidates. It's okay to follow up with your HR person or your recruiter to say, hey, what's going on? Am I in the running? Am I not in the running? What's happening here? Because typically in recruitment processes, until the job is completely closed out, that's when they'll notify everybody that the job has been filled with somebody else or filled with yourself. So make sure that you do follow up with a recruiter if you have questions. And then finally, if you have an offer with another company or are close to another offer, it's important to mention that to your interview panel or the HR person or the recruiter, whoever's important here. It's important to talk to them about that. All right, so next steps, you received an offer. So what do you do now? So a couple of people say to me, they're like, oh, I got this offer. Should I negotiate? Should I not negotiate? Understand the market value for the position. Understand the entire package. So salary, vacation, bonus, and benefits. So look at, what does that benefits look like? What did the salary look like? What is the vacation? Negotiate where you think is applicable for you. So it could be that maybe the salary is okay for you, but you prefer more time off. That's okay. So look at maybe negotiating your vacation time instead. Before you do that though, know the person across the table, know what kind of conversation you can have with them, understand who they are, how to approach the conversation, always tell the truth. So when you're negotiating a salary, know what your salary is, know what your worth is, look at salary.com. I have to tell you, salary.com is very accurate. So typically when you're looking at salary.com, they will tell you what the market is for that job. And finally, don't negotiate just to negotiate. So make sure that you're looking at the salary for the job. Is it fair? Is it not fair? If you feel like it's a fair offer, you don't have to negotiate. Promotions. Everyone, this is another really hard topic. Don't be afraid to ask. And so many times in my career, I have asked for a promotion, and it's awkward and it's a little weird to kind of talk about. But as you're thinking about it, think about, do some research, understand how you're viewed in the organization. What are your strengths? What are your opportunities? Have you taken on more responsibility? Have you taken on less responsibility? Know what to ask. Build your case, consider timing. So if you're in a downturn, consider timing, plant the seed, talk to your boss, nurture the seed, I always say. So maybe if it's not now, it could be later. And then be patient. So it may not happen right away, but understand what does it take to get to that next step. And then to a point. So, but you always could look for another job. Finally, from a career advice perspective, I always tell everybody there's a couple things you need to think about. Connect. So connect with the people that are most important in the organization to you, who you think can be helpful to you from a career perspective. Be inquisitive. So ask a lot of questions. I think this is one of the things that I would probably regret in my career, but one of the things that I can also say that I am a question asker. But ask questions, figure out what makes sense, figure out how it connects into what you're doing. Invest in yourself. So there is an opportunity for you to be able to say, how do I focus on getting myself to the next place in my career? Who do I need to connect with? What do I need to do on the outside? What do I need to learn? How do I learn those things? Find a mentor who's honest with you. And I have to say, this is probably one of the most important things that you could do, because none of us are perfect. We all have a lot to learn. I always say, I need somebody, I want to know my feedback. I don't want a review at the end of the year that someone's, oh, you did so great, everything's great, because it's not. I mean, I know that I have things to work on personally, professionally, we all do. So find somebody, whether it's your boss, whether it's a peer, whether it's a person more senior to you, whether it's even someone outside of your organization, find somebody who's going to be honest with you. Be strong. And I tell this to everybody all the time. You know what you want out of your career. And so think about when you're going into these situations, how do you focus your energy to get to where you want to go? So be able to have some of those really difficult conversations with yourself, with your mentors, with your boss, with your peer groups. Be able to, even in meetings, show up and say, and have an opinion, have a voice. I always joke about this, don't cry at work. There's going to be moments where people frustrate you and really, really show you probably some of the worst sides of themselves. And it's hard. I know in the fashion industry, I joke all the time, people are mean. They were really, really mean, but it was always my goal to never cry at work because it's not personal. You're coming into work, it's professional. So keep it that way. And if you do, go hide somewhere. You could do anything else anyone's doing. It's all about the effort you put in. And I say this all the time to people who I know, it's kind of a funny story. I was working at MAC Cosmetics at the time. I met another person who was 25. She told me she was an HR manager. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's 25. I'm 25. I can be an HR manager. And so why am I not doing this? And I worked so hard to get there and learn, and, you know, a lot of 12 to 15 hour days in my early 20s and late 20s and sometimes now, but you can do anything anyone else is doing. It's just about the effort you're putting into it. I always say your employer owes you nothing. You are the only person that can show them what you're capable of and how you can add value. I see this so many times from people where they feel that the company owes them something. They owe them development. They owe them mentorship, but they can't make that path for you. You have to make that path. Nobody knows what you want more than you. So figure out how you want to get there, ask for the resources, ask for the help, but they're not going to be able to do it for you. You have to be able to do it for yourself. Again, ask lots of questions. Don't ever pretend to know anything. So the earlier on in your career, the more you ask, the more you know. So make sure you're asking that. Never be the smartest person in the room. I always feel like if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm no longer learning. So make sure that you're in the room with people that you feel like can add value to yourself, your learning. Fail fast. It's okay to make mistakes. Just make them quickly and move on. Don't linger in that the sadness of your mistake. Figure out how to pick it up and move back to the next place. Don't take yourself so seriously. I think this is probably one of the most important things that I've had in my career is that you go into work to have fun, and you go there to do really good things. And as long as you're doing that, you're going to make some mistakes. There's going to be some bumps in the roads, but there's going to be some really awesome things that happen. So don't take yourself seriously. Allow yourself to have fun on the journey. And finally, be resilient. I mean, there's nothing more than you can do in your career than be resilient. So you have to be able to pick yourself up, push forward, and be able to do the great things that we know everyone's going to do. So it's a quick overview on careers and interviewing. And I apologize, my daughter was making noise during this and standing in front of me. So I was trying to get her out of the room. So I apologize if you heard some noise in the background, but that is, that's kind of my career in a nutshell. So questions, thoughts, anything I can answer for you?
So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Andrew, any questions come through to you? Sometimes students also email, I know, student questions as well.
I do. I have a couple of questions here too. And Amy, you've got some awesome experience in the field. So I'm wondering if you can maybe give us an example or tell us a story of somebody who stood out to you and what advice you could give a student to help standing out in that either application, interview, process.
Sure. So I will tell you, it's a lot of kind of what I covered. So I'm trying to think, there's so many people that have stood out to me throughout my career. So it's hard to kind of pick one, but I can tell you, I recently had an intern that kind of came in, and she was very quiet in the beginning, very, very quiet, very much observant, was a little bit more, I would say just kind of took it all in at first and didn't ask a lot of questions. And so I shared a lot of the same insight with her, like ask a lot of questions. This is your time. And literally overnight, I think she turned into this question asking machine. Really took a lot of the stuff upon her as far as a self-starter, was researching things, looking at best practices, really focused on, how do I kind of fit in, ask a lot of questions. So being a little on the fearless side of being able to say, look, I can talk to anybody in an organization. They're all normal people. From the CEO to the CFO to our manufacturing line workers. I mean, everybody's there to help. So it's really good to use your resources, and she figured that out. So that's probably one of the best stories I have.
Great. The questions, I agree, really important to be asking in the interview process and new on the job too. So here's one I get a lot in the office. So I'm interested on your take there. A lot of students see in job applications where they have an optional cover letter to include. What do you think? Write the cover letter or skip the cover letter? What's your thought?
All right, I may be on the wrong side of this one, but I skip the cover letter. I cannot tell you the last time I read a cover letter. I'll be honest. We barely have time to read resumes. And so I think cover letters are fantastic to show your overview. But I wouldn't say many people require them anymore. So resume only for me.
Okay, well, that's good. Hey, that's what we're asking, your advice. So you mentioned LinkedIn too. I've got a question on that one. And we love to see students have strong LinkedIn profiles. When would you say is a good time for a candidate to connect with you or ask to connect on LinkedIn? Is it right after they send the application? Is it when they have an interview scheduled? Not until after you're already coworkers?
So that is a great question. So I will say, I get a ton of resumes, as you can imagine. And one of the things that I always tell people, so if you want to kind of get to the top of the list, connect with either the hiring manager or connect with the recruiter or someone in the HR team that you think is recruiting and say, hey, I sent in my resume. Can you check it out? Would love to chat with you further. Because it does give a personal touch to you actually sending in your resume. So I think that's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then I have another question here from a student who's making a change in industries for their career. So specifically, this student is asking if you have any advice from construction/engineering to the pharma area. But what advice do you have for somebody that's looking to make that change?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, making career changes in the middle of your career or later in your career it's not easy. So I know there's been times that I've thought like, oh, you know what, can I do this HR thing for the rest of my life? I think it's using your contacts, to be honest, finding out what skills you have aligned with the new industry. So being able to align with what can I do here? What have I done that align with a position in the new industry? And is that something I'm interested in doing? Unfortunately, sometimes when you're changing industries, your compensation may go down a little bit, but it's only for a small part of time until you can build back up those skills. So in some cases, depending on how drastic it is, you may be going back to the beginning. In some cases, you may be able to use your career and your skills that you've had so far to be able to align with another career in that industry. But when you're changing industries, it's all about networking and knowing people who are willing to take a chance.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. That temporary salary setback for quality of life and enjoying the job is probably well worth the change there.
Yes. Yep.
So my next student question is coming from a student thinking about OraSure's hiring timelines. So they're wondering when to expect things to open up that they might be able to apply to, and also what's the breakdown? Do you look at undergrads? Do you look at master's or PhD level students? What's your ideal candidate?
Sure. So check it out. We are hiring right now. I think we have over 140 positions that are about to come up online. So we have a ton of hiring that we're doing right now. So check out our websites, check out our online presence, LinkedIn. We have a ton out there right now. So from a PhD, master's, bachelor's degree, it all depends on the job, to be honest. So if our scientists, we typically look at master's or PhD. Depending on what role it is. We do a lot of internal mentoring though. So from that perspective, we do a lot of internal mentoring on site. It depends on if you're in finance, we could be looking for a bachelor. So it all depends on the role, but we're just looking for good talent, to be honest.
Okay. So it sounds like there might be something for every educational level there with OraSure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. Last question here is, it says you've done a lot of business with like OraSure's really had some great growth over the years. What would you say is the most promising or thriving new initiative that OraSure is doing?
Well, it's interesting. So when I went back to the beginning of the slides where we talk about our 3 different models, so our services model is our newest venture. And so what we realized is we've done a ton of sample collections. So from an HIV, HCV, Ebola, Zika, et cetera, drug testing, substance abuse, is in our infectious disease. And I said, that's in Bethlehem. So we have a lot of work from that perspective that's going on along with our COVID test that's happening there. When we look at our molecular side of the business, and this goes back to our sample collection that I was talking about before, I'm thinking about 23andMe and those customers, we realized that we didn't necessarily have labs to go along with what we were doing. So we then created our services function as well. So I can't say that one part of the business is thriving more than another, to be quite honest, because with everything happening in the world right now and us being a sample collection, an infectious disease manufacturer, we're on all cylinders right now. So everything is thriving, thank goodness, knock on wood for us, which is exciting.
Great. Well, that was some great information. Thanks to the students who sent some things through the chat there. And just as a reminder, Ali is recording today, so we will be sharing this on our YouTube channel. So if you missed the beginning part of the presentation or you just want a refresher, we will be sure to share out that link there as well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say how much we appreciate, Amy, you taking the time to be with us. I particularly appreciated the tips that you share with students and the focus that you put on your mindset, your attitude, the effort you put in, and taking a proactive stance. I think those are all great advice for students, and really I'm thankful that you could spend this time with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me. This has been great.
Yeah. All right, if you're joining us, you're welcome to head out and look for an update from us about the link.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.